Out of all the videos I've made on VCE English, this video will distill down 10 of my most important tips, so you can go kill that final exam. First, let's start with the reading time. So in the 15 minutes that you have, I usually begin by taking a quick glance at the topics for section A and B, but I spend the majority of my time, so 13 to 14 minutes, on reading the article for section C, argument analysis. And this is because this is the most unpredictable section, and because of that, it's always hard to think on the spot, especially for an article that you've never seen before. So that's why I like to use most of my reading time to go through the article so I'm familiar with it, and that way when writing time starts, it's fresh in my mind, I can grind it out so it's out of the way. And in terms of actually reading the article and what to look for, typically I read the article twice. So first time it's just to gauge the basic idea of the piece, and then second time I try and find all the quotes that I'm going to use. And that totaled up to around 9 quotes in total, so I had 3 body paragraphs, 3 quotes for each, so that's why 9. And the reason this is important is because of my second tip, which is as soon as writing time starts, you want to make a quick 1 to 2 minute plan that covers all the quotes that you're going to use. And I found this really useful because it prevents me from rereading the article as I'm writing, which just ends up wasting a lot of time. And I'll just add this in here, but after section C, you can either pick section A or B, it's really up to you, and for me, it definitely varied a bit. Typically, I look at the topics first and I pick the topic that's easier, because as I'm writing the easier topic, I can think about the harder topic. And as you're writing all your essays, it's very easy to lose track of time, so this was my way to help me stay on track. And I split all my essays into timestamps, and that meant I spent 5 minutes for the introduction, 15 minutes per body paragraph, and 5 minutes for the conclusion, and 5 minutes to proofread. Now obviously this can vary, but it just gives you a general guideline for how fast you should write each section. And if you find yourself spending too much on one section, then it's probably an indication that you need to move on. And if you don't like this way, or you just want to do a little bit of a cross-check, then another way to go about tracking your time is to visually see how much your essay takes up. So for example, my introduction usually took up around 1/3 of the page. Each body paragraph took about 1 page each, and then the conclusion was quite short. So with that in mind, if I'm writing my body paragraph and I write, and I get up to 1 page, then I know I pretty much have enough detail already and I can tie it off quite quickly. And I just want to drill home the point why this is important, because a lot of people just spend all their time focusing on the first 2 body paragraphs and then just completely ignore the third, and that costs them a lot of marks. And so it's better to actually have 3 semi-finished body paragraphs than to have 2 complete paragraphs and neglecting the third one, having like no third body paragraph. Because oftentimes that third body paragraph is where the more sophisticated ideas come in. And so it's better to have a general structure of your essay where the assessor can kind of see you have all the parts correctly, as opposed to rushing that final bit. So hopefully with these tips, you can stay on track. Quick break. I know this is a stressful time, so if you do have any questions, obviously you can leave them here on YouTube, but also feel free to DM me on Instagram. I will be responding very quickly for once. You can ask me anything about VCE English or life in general, and I'll respond to everyone's messages, unless your name starts with J. Anyways, back to the video. Next tip, and this is something that is slept on, is picking a good pen. Because I remember when I used to write a lot of practice essays, especially by the end, I would get like ink all over my palm, and obviously that was not great because it would smudge the writing. And so picking a decently good pen is important. You don't have to go out of your way to buy like a Gucci pen or something, but I do have some recommendations. So Muji pens are usually quite good and they're quite smooth to write in. Or if you have super messy handwriting like myself, I quite like this pen from Officeworks. Now let's talk about the actual structure for each essay. And I remember a few weeks before my actual exam, I started overthinking the structure too much, and I started nitpicking every single word that was in my essay, when in reality there's no need to overthink that much, and it helps sometimes to zoom out and just look at the most basic structure that you can have. And I know when I say basics that might sound like too easy or too embarrassing, but in reality, if you just do the basics, that will get you 80% of the marks. And so it's very important not to neglect this and start overthinking the basic structure of your essay. And what structure am I talking about? I'm not talking about teal, because teal is mid. What I'm talking about is the how, what, why structure. And this was the structure I used for every single essay for all 3 sections. And I have an extremely detailed playlist covering how to write each essay on the final exam, sentence by sentence. But don't jump over there just yet, because for the rest of this video, I'll be referring to a lot of other videos that will also be in that playlist. And I'll link it below and also at the end of this video. Now back to writing, here are 2 common mistakes that everyone makes in their essays. First is not answering the prompt, And if you've been watching some of my videos, you'll probably know that I mention this in almost every single exam prep video because it is by far the most common mistake. But at the same time, it's extremely easy to fix because first thing to do is just to spam the keywords of your topic in your essay somewhere. Okay, it's a bit of an exaggeration, but make sure you don't ignore the keyword. And second thing is just to make sure that each quote you pick logically links back to your prompt. And the second most common mistake is summarizing, not analyzing. But again, there's an easy fix to this, and it is by using the phrase, "this highlights." For example, if we have a sentence like, "the author discusses the corruption that's occurring on YouTube," this is just summarizing what's happening. But if we want to add analysis, we just throw on the phrase, "this highlights" at the end. For example, at the end, we can say, "This highlights that the platform is suffering from unethical behavior and dishonest manipulation." So that last part is your analysis, and you can force yourself to analyze by having the phrase, "this highlights." Now, let's move on to vocab. I'm telling you from hindsight that there's absolutely no need to use overly big words to sound flamboyant. Just keep your word choices simple but accurate. And one simple thing that I like to do to spice up my writing is what our teacher called adverb-verb combos. So quick English lesson, a verb is a doing word like hit. An adverb is what describes a verb like aggressively. So an adverb-verb combo would be aggressively hits. Congrats, you passed English 101. But in terms of an essay context, if we have the sentence, "the author criticizes the corruption of society," we can add a bit more color to it by saying, "the author blatantly criticizes the corruption," or "the author unequivocally criticizes the corruption of society." And I'll have the full list of adverbs and verbs, as well as all the other vocab that I used, in that playlist at the end. So stay tuned for that. Now back to some more time management tips. If you're still running out of time, leave all your conclusions for all your essays to the end, because that's what I did. And the reason for this is that if you miss out on writing a conclusion, that's not the end of the world. What's worse is if you don't finish all your body paragraphs. So I'm not saying that conclusion is not important, but in terms of a priority order, definitely focus on all the body paragraphs for all your essays first, and then I went back and filled in the conclusions. In terms of things you can do beforehand to help you save time, the best thing to do, in my opinion, is to memorize. So you can memorize sentence stems, quotes, and analysis, and essay templates, and this will just help you save time. Even if you memorize one sentence, that is one less sentence that you have to write on your final exam. Now, obviously you don't want to regurgitate every single piece of information that you have, and that's why a core part of my revision was focused on doing as many detailed skeleton plans as possible. And this will help you get exposed to a broad range of essay topics and ideas. And some of them actually came up on the final exam for myself. And I'm not saying you should bank on that, but I am saying that the benefit of doing so is that you'll just become more familiar with everything in general. And if you're watching this right now, the exam is probably coming up soon, or it might be tomorrow. And so just a few last minute tips. And the most important one, in my opinion, is that you don't need to start churning out full practice exams or even plans days before your actual exam. And look, I was in your position a few years ago, and it definitely feels like you have to be grinding every single day because that's what everyone is doing. But in reality, less is more in this case. And if you just implement the tips provided in this video, you'll already be ahead of most people. And there's no need to do this last minute revision because it'll just stress you out. So in your last few days, just relax, go outside, touch some grass. Hope this was a helpful video, and on a slightly different note, this is probably going to be my last video on VCE English because I'm actually graduating university this year, so it's been some time since I did VCE, and I guess it's time to move on for myself. And so I hope that all these videos have been really helpful and it's made your VCE journey slightly bit easier. And I guess on that note, all the best for your exams.